Let's talk about Shelley Zimmerman, shall we? This is big. It's big for Shelley Zimmerman personally. It's big for her marriage. It's big for her family. It's big for the Trayvon Martin murder case against her husband. Shelley, as far as we know, had no criminal record. Yet, in the space of a few minutes testimony for her husband, while under oath, Shelley Zimmerman has gone from having no criminal record to facing up to 5 years in jail for perjury. I've heard a legal analyst describe the perjury case against Shelley as a slam dunk. There is hard evidence against her, which means she will almost certainly be convicted. The only dispute is how much time she'll serve in jail. Shelley is a young woman, not yet 30. She's invested 2, maybe 3 years in college, working toward a nursing degree. Presumably, she intended to find work in nursing to support herself and her family. You need a license to practice nursing. Will Shelley be able to obtain a license if she's convicted? If she is able to obtain a license, who will hire Shelley Zimmerman? Shelley has gone from relative anonymity with no criminal record to notoriety and having a criminal record. Shelley is now known to the world as the woman who lied under oath for George Zimmerman. How will Shelley Zimmerman rebuild her life after such notoriety? There is a strong chance her husband will be convicted and spend perhaps decades in prison. This couple hasn't been married long and they have no children together. I don't think this is the sort of timeless love that will withstand intense pressure over decades. It's no longer about standing by your man or happily ever after for Shelley. It is fair to say that Shelley's and George's marriage is effectively over. The question now is whether there is anything that can be salvaged. Shelley Zimmerman must choose between her own life and her husband's life. Shelley must defend herself against George. Ironic, isn't it? There are legal implications also. O'Mara has already kicked Shelley to the curb, so to speak, by saying he can't defend her due to conflict of interest. O'Mara has admitted that Shelley's interests conflict with her husband's interests. Shelley has gone from being an asset to her husband to being a liability, legally speaking. She can no longer speak on his behalf without reminding everyone of her perjury. Now, when one partner in a marriage is forced to choose between himself or herself and his or her partner, then that marriage is effectively over. Shelley and George are now at legal odds. It could be said that George encouraged Shelley to lie on his behalf. Well, he certainly didn't stop her, and he certainly didn't try to save her when he had the opportunity. That was what the bail hearing was for, remember? That was George's opportunity to take the stand and disabuse the court of his wife's misrepresentations. George didn't take that opportunity. George did take the stand, not to disabuse the court, but to address the grieving parents of his victim against their wishes. Had George considered his wife's well-being, he would have taken the stand and told the court that he did in fact have hundreds of thousands of dollars and that Shelley didn't know the full extent of it. Ultimately, that might not have worked, because there is hard evidence that Shelley did in fact know how much money there was. But it would have shown love and care, and it might have averted disaster. For George to say now that he's concerned for his wife's well-being strains credulity. I think George is concerned that Shelley may crack under pressure and try to make some kind of deal with prosecutors to save herself. That brings me to the in-laws. Now, you know how much drama there is with in-laws, even in the best of times. These are not good times for the Zimmermans. Normally, both halves of a family will come together to support a young couple. But we're talking second-degree murder charges here. We're talking guns and the killing of a minor and serious jail time, potentially. What do you think Shelley's folks are saying to their daughter? No doubt they blame George for their daughter's new criminal notoriety. Loving parents will try to save their child from a destructive relationship. They will be telling Shelley to think of her future. How will she support herself? How will she redeem herself from association with racist groups? Who will hire her now? Can she do 5 years in prison? Will she ruin her whole life over this? For George? Is it possible to redeem herself? Can she make a deal, perhaps, with prosecutors? This situation has created mistrust between the Zimmermans and Shelley's family. George Zimmerman is metaphorically a house engulfed in flames, and Shelley has caught fire also. Her family will try to pour water on her to save their daughter, although it may be too late. Either way, this puts the couple and the families under intense pressure. If prosecutors planned it that way, then they deserve a round of applause. Thanks for listening.